Hello, Samson here. So, an interesting segment, I think, for November. I was reading a hard copy this time, The Radical Entrepreneur. Just got it, I think, yesterday, and it took me about 4 hours or so to read it because I was reading it slow. But it's one of those books, if you're in Zambia, that you just want to grab a copy for yourself. I got it from the forum that was there at Molongoshi yesterday. So yeah, The Radical Entrepreneur, it's an interesting book. Like, it's got so much insights. If you're a startup or someone who's an entrepreneur, you definitely just want to read this one. But yeah, right into the review of the book. I think there is a couple of lessons I got from it. From just the introduction itself, the author Domisani Moe divides the book into three sections, literally, which I call three parts. So the first one is he's bringing out the fundamentals of entrepreneurship and raising the question of saying why we need entrepreneurship. And then the second part of the book is discussing his journey. That is just his personal history and more of an autobiography, which we can just cruise through to understand where he's coming from and what it's taken him to reach to where he is right now. And then the third thing, or the part three of the book, is talking about fundamentals, that is for enterprising. So some of the things that you need as an entrepreneur or as a startup or someone who's just into the business itself. So the book has got like 12 chapters, of which in the second part mostly I thought it wise not necessarily to tell his story, because I think he narrates his story better than I can do. So the focus is mostly going to be on the first and the third part, where we're talking about why entrepreneurship is important and some of the things that you need as an entrepreneur in order just to scale up, or as a startup where you just need to start up and stuff like that. So why bother about entrepreneurship is a question that is being brought up in chapter 1. So the answers that he gave are practically four, which intrigued me. So the first one is simply because real wealth is basically found in entrepreneurship. So a lot of people who are billionaires, who are millionaires rather, people who have ventured into enterprising, the people who are practically enterprising, because of the fact that a salary cannot, I think, make you a millionaire, because it's something that comes and goes, something like that. So the second thing, reason rather, that is given pertaining to why you need to be enterprising, is the fact that jobs are being scarce. I think it's a job on its own right now to find a job. And the third thing is probably so that you can change where your security is. So security has now changed. Security was based on a job then, but now security is basically based in what entrepreneurship is about. And then the third reason that is given is simply because he's a Christian. So the Bible supports the fact that we're supposed to be enterprising, giving examples of Abraham, Isaac, and stuff like that. So those guys were, he calls entrepreneurs, because they were people who had a lot of wealth and employed other people. So into chapter 2, where he's talking about his humble beginnings and all that, I think there are some lessons that I got from there, like his background, because he says I was raised from a village setup and stuff like that. So there are a couple of lessons that I got from him. That is, the skill of hard work and focus is what helped him and helps him to be where he is and getting to where he's going. And then the other thing he's bringing forth, is how painful dealing with the consequences of your actions can be. And then the other lesson is how you can avoid the pain that your actions is going to bring. So talking about him being spanked when maybe he did something wrong at home and stuff like that. So those are some of the lessons I think that I got from him. And then an interesting thing that I found in the book is that he learned how to read, or started reading from somewhere grade 4, where it became serious and stuff like that. And then it just opened up his world to be able to see things from a different perspective. And then he emphasizes saying that you are mentored by people you are not going to physically meet when you read. So the emphasis is on reading I think that's one of the things that I got from the book. And then in chapter 3, where he's talking about the underdog business, where starting up and whatnot is something that is not necessarily looked into as something that can become serious, not until something great comes out of it. And then in chapter 4, he's talking about self-discovery, and then where the radical entrepreneur is born. In chapter 5, we're talking about the challenges rather, that create champions. So he's still giving his background history of some of the challenges that he faced along the way. As I mentioned earlier on, that I'm not going to delve into his story because it's intriguing when you read it for yourself or when you listen from him yourself. So some of the challenges that he faced, you're going to find them when you read The Radical Entrepreneur. And then in chapter 6, we're discussing persistence that breaks resistance. Still his story. So the thing here that I got is literally you need to leverage on building partnerships. So you cannot just do everything on your own. So I love the fact that he's bringing a story of Mkelevai, his friend, where they started up Glad Tidings Limited, where they were offering services to different schools and whatnot. So yeah, he had expertise in marketing and sales, and then the other guy had expertise in something different, that was technology, and then they were able to build up something great. In part 3, that is the last section of the book from chapter 7 to 12. Now we're discussing chapter 7, the 4 radical steps that you need to take in order to become a successful entrepreneur. So the first one is you need to know your game. So knowing your game requires you to be a reader, knowing how the market is running and everything. So knowing your game requires you to have first-hand information of what is going on in the field that you want to enter. And then the second thing is you need to know your competitors, your competition literally, because these are the people who are offering the same products, the same services that you're offering. And then number 3, you need to differentiate yourself. How are you going to stand out? What's your business model like for you to stand out in order to bring forth to the marketplace what is supposed to be brought out? And then the last thing is implementing, which is practically something that is hard because you can have an idea, and then if you do not implement, then there is nothing that's going to work at the end of the day. So from chapter 9, we're talking about failures, chapter 8 rather, failure along the way and how to overcome challenges and stuff like that. Then in chapter 9, hitting the ground running and stuff like that. So when you want to hit the ground running, there are a couple of things to look at. For example, naming of your company, where your company name is supposed to be simple and whatnot. So there are certain principles for you in order for you to hit the ground up and running. So one of the things that you need to look at is to look at the front end and the back end of the business. So the front end of the business is focused on marketing and sales, and the back end of the business is focused on the systems that the business has. So when starting up, focus on the balance of that, because most people maybe are going to just focus on what the back end of the business is, or maybe they're going to focus on the front end of the business. The other principle rather that I find is rapid growth and retarded growth. So in rapid growth, you're talking about a situation where a company you've just started and then you've got a lot of customers and then you fail to reach the demands that they have, and then it's going to lead to a downfall. Retarded growth as well is that thing where you're just growing very slow and then you're going to be kicked out of business. So there's supposed to be a balance between the two, and then working in and working on the business. Starting out, supposed to work in the business in order to understand how it's running and all that. When you begin to grow, you can work on the business where you are focused on employing and then just running the business away from the business. That is the point where you can now diversify. So there is a principle that says do not diversify so early. Chapter 10, wealth creation principles. So these are basically, it takes time for someone to create wealth. I think a lot of billionaires, I think the youngest should be Mark Zuckerberg. I think maybe by this time, where less than 40 or so, but most of the billionaires who existed are above 40. So it gives us an impression that it takes time in order for wealth to be built. So it's going to take a lot of time. And then chapter 11, positioning yourself for success. Then chapter 12, the last thing where is emphasizing on Africa must think. The fact is the future of Africa and Zambia as a whole definitely lies in the young. That is where the emphasis is. So young people, if you look at independence, where these young vibrant men came to liberate Zambia and Africa literally from colonialism and stuff like that. So they were young, and that is where the focus is. In order for us to have an economic revolution as Zambia and as Africa, it's going to take young people in order to be able to achieve that. So this is a short review about the radical entrepreneur. You just want to grab a copy for yourself and then be able to read it. You're going to find insights that I have not even given a glimpse of. And on another hand, Safe Sam Life Farm is up and running. So we are open for business. You can consult with us, get in contact and get in touch with us and all that. Yeah, so that is just pretty much about today's book review. Till we meet in the next segment, check it out.